Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Crystal Bell, a leadership strategist, executive, founder of Clarity with Crystal. She helps burned out high performers and women entrepreneurs cut through the noise, make better decisions, and move towards clarity. So we'll explore with her what authentic female leadership looks like in corporate tech, the difference between being busy and making progress, and why alignment is an ongoing practice, not a static achievement. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Crystal. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people a lot of women leaders across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about from overwhelm to align, how to get there with you. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Yeah, so I am from the States. I grew up in the Midwest and have had a sort of a weird career journey. I intended to be a music teacher. So I went to university for education. And during that time period when I was graduating, there was a lot of conversation around whether or not music and the arts should be taught in schools or if it should be privatized. I got nervous, and so I went to graduate school because I was like, nope, I can't deal with maybe not having a career path that's stable, and got my MBA as well as my Master's of Arts Management. And from there, went into working in nonprofits or NGOs. We call it nonprofit in the States, and then transitioned to a local government where I had the opportunity to work for 4 years and began working. Part of my job was working within a particular software. That software led me to had the opportunity to go and work for that company that was implementing the software. And I started there in 2015, started as a business analyst and worked my way up to my current role as president here of Enterprise Solutions. And I've been in this role as an executive for 5 years now. Along the same lines, I've always been a bit of an overachiever. I think I learned it early in my life. And so I can't just have one job, I have to have a couple different ones. And I took yoga teacher training in 2022. I've been a yoga practitioner for about 15 years now, and really just fell in love with the yogic philosophy. So connect a lot to the Yoga Sutra teachings, to Patanjali's book of the Yoga Sutra, and to the ancient principles of yoga, and decided to start teaching and had the opportunity to become part owner of a local yoga and wellness studio here. And just recently have been really inspired to take this a bit further. I have some private clients and have launched Clarity with Crystal, where I act as a business coach for, as you said, female executives or female entrepreneurs trying to figure out, if they're feeling a little bit stuck, how to move forward, increase their revenue, increase their focus, and get to clarity. So yeah, really excited to be here today, and talking about overwhelm is right in my wheelhouse.
Wonderful, wonderful, Crystal. So, to understand it for the common person, for the audience, what is it that you are trying to say? Who is it that you are trying to say with what you are saying, what you are doing?
Yeah, so I think that what I talk about is appropriate for anybody, right? Because we don't feel overwhelmed just because we're corporate executives, right? Everyone can feel overwhelmed in this life. We have so much consumption from the media, from a demand on our time, from advertisements and marketing, and from maybe having families, either children or taking care of older family members. And then we're balancing that with trying to build and maintain relationships within our ecosystem, having friendships and continuing to have a strong partnership. And so overwhelm isn't something that only people who work in corporate or only entrepreneurs have a cornerstone in. Everybody can feel overwhelmed because this world that we live in has created a culture of overwhelm, of burnout, through the ideas of hustling and grinding and doing more and being busy as an ultimate prize that we win. So I think that even though my business focuses on entrepreneurs and executives, that what I teach really can hit with everybody.
Absolutely. So these are very smart people who have already achieved quite a bit. Why is it that they lose clarity along the way?
Yeah.
How does that happen? Why does that happen?
So I think it happens. People lose clarity either very quickly or over time, and I'm going to talk about those in two different ways. So people might lose clarity right away because they don't actually know when they set a goal what the long-term purpose of that goal is. And so sometimes at work we get really overwhelmed because we're working toward this task, but we don't actually have clarity around what that task is going to be doing, what our long-term goal actually is, how it's going to benefit us or our consumers or our constituents. And so that in itself is a lack of clarity, maybe right from the get-go, right? We just get into a sort of hamster wheel of tasks without knowing what the outcome is, should be, or that we are driving toward. The other side of
Absolutely.
that is sort of the long-term loss of clarity, right? That we begin by really feeling focused, but as we go through our days, as we go through our weeks, a lot of people begin to stack more and more activities, more and more priorities, more and more actions that we're saying yes to regularly. So maybe that is a combination of taking care of the kids and doing kids sports and making healthy meals and trying to keep up date nights with your partner and trying to make sure that your house is clean and being at work and trying to get through 4, 5, 6 different projects and maintaining a work-life balance. I'm putting that in quotations if you're just listening. And so I think that over time we stop being clear on what it is that we're trying to accomplish because we're just saying yes to everything. And what we focus on is the busyness, is the next task in front of us, rather than what our long-term goal is that we're trying to really move toward.
Absolutely. So how do you bring about that clarity in your own life? President of a publicly traded software company and also co-founding a wellness studio and doing all those things at the same time. Why not learn directly from how you are doing what you are doing?
Yeah, and so what I'm doing right now is really practicing my yogic principles, not just the asana, not just the movement, right? Which I think, especially in the United States, gets a lot of popularity. But I find it really important for me in order to remember what it is that I'm here for, what my purpose is, to pause and practice pranayama, which is the breath work, to practice meditation. And another principle of of the 8 limbs of yoga is concentration. So pausing and really spending time thinking and conceptualizing one thing at a time, and trying to really understand my purpose within that, my goal, whether or not it is part of my life or not. And I think that doing those and intentionally carving out time in my weeks every week to spend time in quiet, in breath work, and in meditation is one of the only ways that I survive as an executive, as a founder, and as an owner of a small business, because it provides me the time to think about what is important in my week, what is important in my life, and I give myself permission to say no to things that are not working toward that goal.
Absolutely. So, what can, especially women entrepreneurs, leaders can learn from how you manage things? Sometimes, you either walk through the beaten track, beaten path, and or either want to break all the rules. What is the best way to move forward? How did you decide which path to take?
So for me, I mean, honestly, it took a long time and trying a lot of different things, right? I think there is no one size fits all solution for everyone. But finding something that works, something that brings a little bit of quiet in the mind if you are somebody who has mind chatter, right? I just learned that some people don't have that. They don't have the like kind of constant voice in their head. But if you are one of those people, which I am, trying a couple different things. Maybe it means scheduling time in your calendar. Maybe it means that you give yourself 5 minutes before you get out of bed to sit in the state between being asleep and awake, just to contemplate or ponder what is the most important thing for you today. Or with me, I keep sticky notes on my desk in front of me because I'm in front of my computer a lot to remind myself of something that it is that I'm working toward in this moment. So for me, that particular sticky note was actually the Ganesha prayer, because I want to remember to be grateful for what I have right now. At other parts of my life, the sticky note has been about taking a breath and asking myself if it really would make a difference if I freaked out versus stayed calm, because a lot of times we forget that staying calm helps the situation a lot more than moving into that overwhelm and allowing our nervous system to take over and either moving into fight, fight, or freeze. So it could be anything. It could be taking a bath. It could be having a warm tea. It could be going for a walk for a few minutes. Just finding something that works for you and then practicing that regularly.
Absolutely, absolutely. The thing is that a lot of achievers, high performers, they think that they need to continue to perform at that high level, or they will just fall off that ladder of success, or the others will not perceive them the benchmarks that they have set. And that is where, a lot of people find it difficult. And you talk about that is where you talk about performance and presence. So help us understand how should one walk this particular, you know, uh, road in terms of which to prefer when presence versus performance, or presence and performance. How does that work, especially for women leaders?
Yes. I was actually just talking to one of my team members about this the other day of how, as we've grown through the process of building up ourselves in our career ladder and then becoming executives, that the work changes, right? The work that we do as individual contributors, we often focus on performance in such a focused way because we are creating tasks and doing them, and we want to do them really well so that we can create a name for ourselves, so that we can keep climbing the ladder. We take on a lot of tasks as individual performers, and as we're moving up through the managerial ranks to be able to sort of prove ourselves. And then at some point we become executives, maybe if we're blessed enough to do that. And as an executive, the tasks get bigger and have a longer time span, but they have less to do with what you're doing and more to do with what your team is doing and how you are leading and how you're thinking rather than what you're doing. And so I think that, again, both pieces are important. And I can't say that performance isn't important to me anymore. It is still the number one thing that I think about, but it comes out differently because I'm thinking about the performance of other people. I'm thinking about how I can inspire and lead and open paths and create solutions and make decisions that help people to perform. And that takes presence of mind. That, like, in order to be a present leader, I need to be able to think clearly. I need to be able to make decisions to the best of my ability. And I need to be able to be in tune with myself and my team and know when somebody else is smarter than me, somebody else has a better idea, and not be stuck in having to be the best anymore, the thing that got me where I was, because I'm trying to build more leadership and I want the performance of others to be impacted by my presence. So I think there is still a balance, because again, if I was an executive but the team wasn't performing, I wouldn't have my job for very long, right? Like then I go back down and go back into that performance based task. But I have to stay focused on my presence as a leader. And I think that that's something that we can all learn from, is that performance shifts over time, performance shifts over your career, and the higher up that you get, the less your performance is dependent upon you, and the more it is dependent upon how you inspire and engage others.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's touch upon this balance thing once again. You mentioned in the earlier, at the beginning, but let's talk it. You talk it that you are challenging the idea of balance as a static achievement, and in fact, you believe it's an ongoing practice of alignment, one that demands discipline, boundaries, and a willingness to redefine success over time. Help us understand this part for any, especially women leaders, and also because employees also want balance in their life. Would you want your balance different than the employees balance? How would you then look at their balance also along with yours?
Everyone deserves balance, right? Even if you don't have a corporate job. And I think about balance. My yogic practice, the asana postures, have really helped me shift my idea of what balance is, not just physically, but in the workplace and in life. And when I teach my yoga classes and we're doing movement, I always incorporate balance, because I think that it teaches people that balance is not the same every day. Balance, when you're standing on one foot versus the other, it feels very different. Our sides of the body are not equal. And sometimes our balance is different in the morning versus when it is in the evening. People's body types also require different types of balance. So, for example, I have more of an hourglass figure, so my hips are wider than the top of my body and my torso. So my center of gravity is lower. Whereas for men, their shoulders are wider, so their center of gravity is higher. Their balance is going to be different than mine. And so understanding that and then bringing that into the workplace, I think we have coined this term work-life balance, assuming it has to be this even 50-50 split, right? That I need to be exactly even all the time in order to be balanced. And I just think it's nonsense. I think that that's a lie that we've been told over time and that we've started to believe. But that balance is different every day. If you're tired and you wake up and you maybe aren't feeling well, or you've had maybe your children are sick, or maybe there's something that's really tough going on at home, you're going to need more time with yourself. You're going to need more time. You're going to have more time internally focused than you might at work. Other times you have a big project that you're working on, or there's something really important going on that you're trying to engage in, or you want to be picked for a new project. And so maybe you're spending more time, more energy showing up professionally, and you might have less time to focus, or you might be a little bit more distracted when you're at home, right? So I think that this shifts just like it does in our physical bodies, in our energetic bodies all the time. And there is no perfect recipe, and everybody is shaped a little bit differently, right? Some people might have a lot more to give at work and still feel like they're in alignment, whereas others might, maybe they're introverted and they're spending a lot of time on Zoom meetings, need extra time at home to recover, and balance looks different depending on how we're made. So don't give in to this idea that you have to have your work and your home life exactly in perfect alignment and it needs to stay the same every day. You have to listen to your body. Your energy is going to tell you what you're available for, and allow yourself to not show up at 100% every day. Because if you only have 40% to give and you give 40% that day, that's still 100%. It's 100% of the energy you had available for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. How does a fully, aligned situation look like? How do I know whether I have still the remnants of overwhelm or I'm fully aligned?
Yeah. So it's going to be more in your head than in your body, I think, right? Especially if you are somebody who has kind of that constant chatter in your brain, you have to check in with your energy levels. Are your energy levels when you wake up, are you feeling already like you're excited for the day, or are you already dreading what you have to do? Before you go to bed, are you anxious about what might be coming the next day, or are you grateful for the experiences that you had? Are you getting good rest? Is your sleep impacted? So there's lots of different indicators. I notice for me personally, when I am feeling overwhelmed, it is harder to make decisions. I tend to spin more or need to ask different, like more input from people. I know that my sleep is impacted. I tend to have more anxiety during the day. And that comes out by me noticing that I might want to avoid like certain tasks, like checking emails or responding to things that are a little bit harder. I notice that that's happening. When I am feeling aligned, I am coming in, I'm making decisions with clarity, with a strong understanding of what I'm doing and what I believe the outcome is going to be. I'm showing up as my best self. I'm positive. I am not cranky. I'm not short with people because I'm really feeling centered in who I am. And I have time outside of my work to be able to engage, and I have the energy to engage in other things like exercise, like social relationships, like taking time and enjoying cooking dinner. And so you have to kind of ask yourself, how are you feeling at work? How are you behaving at work? How are you feeling at home? How are you behaving at home? And are those two things showing up the way that you want to be, that is the most authentic to you? And if not, that is a really good indicator that you are probably out of alignment. Maybe you're more ornery at work, or maybe you're less engaged. Maybe you're tired at home and you're not doing the things that you would normally do to take care of yourself. Checking in and then making time for those things, because that's going to fill your cup back up.
Absolutely, absolutely, Crystal. There is everything is crystal clear now, and a lot of people will learn from all this. There is still so much to learn about all this from you, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, learn from what you are doing in terms of your wellness studio and the other work, and also perhaps be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so to engage with me, I have a YouTube channel, which is clarity with crystal. I'm launching my website soon, clarity with crystal.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, clarity with crystal, and at breatheyogasalt.com.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.